The transatlantic relationship is at a crossroads. The re-election of Donald Trump in 2024 has ushered in a new era in US foreign policy, one characterized by a distinct shift away from multilateralism and a renewed focus on American interests above all else. This shift has sent shockwaves across the Atlantic, leaving European leaders grappling with the implications of a less engaged and potentially unreliable American partner. Trump's decision to prioritize a meeting with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman over consultations with European allies set the tone for his second term. The optics of this meeting, coming as it did amid heightened tensions with Russia and China, were not lost on European observers. It signaled a clear departure from the traditional post-war consensus that placed a premium on transatlantic unity and cooperation. This new reality has been further underscored by Trump's rhetoric on NATO and his repeated calls for European countries to increase their defense spending. While the need for greater burden sharing within the alliance is not a new issue, the manner in which Trump has chosen to frame the debate has been particularly jarring for many Europeans. His transactional approach to security, coupled with his disdain for multilateral institutions, has raised serious questions about the future of the transatlantic partnership. The current state of affairs demands a sober assessment from European leaders. The time has come to confront the uncomfortable truth that the United States under the Trump administration may no longer be the steadfast ally it once was. This realization, while unsettling, should not be a cause for panic. Rather, it should serve as a catalyst for a long overdue conversation about Europe's role in the world and the need for a more self-reliant and assertive foreign policy. The Trump administration's growing focus on the Middle East, particularly its close ties to Saudi Arabia and its confrontational approach towards Iran, has further fueled anxieties in European capitals. European leaders have watched with growing unease as the United States has doubled down on its military presence in the region, even as it has sought to reduce its commitments elsewhere. This perceived shift in priorities has raised concerns that Europe's security interests, particularly in its eastern neighborhood, may be relegated to the back burner as Washington pursues its own agenda in the Middle East. The US withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal, a signature foreign policy achievement of the Obama administration, has been a particularly divisive issue. European leaders, who largely supported the deal, have been left scrambling to salvage the agreement in the face of US sanctions and the threat of renewed Iranian nuclear activity. The episode has highlighted the growing divergence in perspectives between Washington and its European allies on how best to manage the complex challenges emanating from the Middle East. Moreover, the Trump administration's decision to relocate the US embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, a move widely condemned by the international community, has further inflamed tensions in the region and complicated efforts to restart the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. European leaders have warned that such unilateral actions undermine the prospects for a two-state solution and risk further destabilizing an already volatile region. The Middle East is undoubtedly a region of vital strategic importance to the United States and its European allies. However, the Trump administration's approach to the region, characterized by unilateralism and a disregard for European concerns, has done little to reassure European leaders that their interests are being taken into account. The ongoing turmoil in the Middle East, coupled with the Trump administration's unpredictable foreign policy, has added another layer of complexity to an already challenging security environment for Europe. One of the most contentious issues in the transatlantic relationship in recent years has been the question of defense spending. The United States has long called on its European allies to increase their military expenditures, arguing that they are not contributing their fair share to the collective defense of the NATO alliance. The Trump administration has been particularly vocal on this issue, repeatedly admonishing European leaders for their perceived free-riding on American military might. The numbers paint a stark picture. The United States currently spends around 3.5% of its GDP on defense, while the average for NATO's European members is just over 1.5%. This disparity in spending has been a source of growing frustration in Washington, where many believe that European countries are not taking their security commitments seriously enough. The Trump administration has pointed to this spending gap as evidence that European countries are too reliant on the United States for their security. They argue that this dependence has created a moral hazard, emboldening European leaders to take a more passive approach to foreign policy, knowing that the United States will ultimately step in to protect their interests. While there is no doubt that European countries need to do more to invest in their own defense, the issue is more nuanced than the Trump administration often suggests. European countries face a different set of security challenges than the United States, and their defense spending priorities reflect these differences. Moreover, European countries have made significant strides in recent years to improve their military capabilities and to deepen their defense cooperation. The Trump presidency has shattered the illusion of an unwavering American security guarantee for Europe. For decades, European nations have relied on the United States to underwrite their security, allowing them to focus on economic integration and internal political matters. This reliance, while understandable in the aftermath of World War II and during the Cold War, has bred a degree of complacency and strategic dependency within Europe. Trump's America First rhetoric and his transactional approach to alliances have forced Europeans to confront the possibility that the United States may no longer be willing to automatically come to their aid in times of crisis. The US withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal, the haphazard approach to the Syrian civil war, and the lukewarm commitment to NATO have all served as warning signs that the old rules of the game no longer apply. This realization has been a bitter pill to swallow for many European leaders, particularly those who had grown accustomed to the comfort of American protection. However, it has also served as a much-needed wake-up call, prompting a long-overdue debate about the future of European security and the need for greater self-reliance. The era of unquestioned American hegemony is over. Europe can no longer afford to outsource its security to Washington or assume that American interests will always align with its own. The time has come for Europe to shed its strategic dependence and embrace a more autonomous role in world affairs. Amidst the uncertainty and anxiety surrounding the transatlantic relationship, a glimmer of hope has emerged in the form of renewed efforts to bolster European defense cooperation. The Trump presidency, while deeply unsettling for many Europeans, has also served as a catalyst for a long-overdue conversation about the need for a more robust and independent European security posture. Recent years have witnessed a flurry of initiatives aimed at strengthening European defense capabilities and reducing the continent's reliance on the United States. The European Union has established a permanent structured cooperation framework known as PESCO to facilitate joint defense projects, while NATO has stepped up its efforts to enhance the readiness and interoperability of its forces. In a sign of growing European ambition, France and Germany have announced plans to develop a next-generation fighter jet and a new main battle tank, projects that were once considered unthinkable without US involvement. These initiatives, while still in their early stages, represent a significant step towards a more integrated European defense industrial base. Moreover, European countries have begun to increase their defense budgets, albeit modestly, after years of decline. While the overall level of defense spending in Europe still lags behind that of the United States, the upward trend suggests a growing recognition of the need to invest in security. Section 6. The imperative of European unity. The success of any effort to strengthen European security hinges on the ability of European nations to overcome their historical divisions and embrace a more unified approach to foreign policy and defense. The European Union, with its combined economic weight and political influence, has the potential to be a global power, but only if it can harness the collective strength of its 27 member states. Internal divisions, however, continue to plague the bloc, hindering its ability to speak with a single voice on the world stage. Disagreements over migration, economic policy, and the future of the euro have often overshadowed efforts to forge a common foreign policy. Moreover, the rise of populism and nationalism in many European countries has further complicated efforts to forge a sense of shared purpose and destiny. The changing geopolitical landscape demands a more coherent and assertive European response. The United States, once the guarantor of European security, is now seen by many as an unreliable partner. while Russia's aggressive actions in Ukraine have exposed the continent's vulnerability to external threats. To navigate these turbulent waters, Europe must overcome its internal divisions and forge a more united front. This requires not only increased defense spending and military cooperation, but also greater political cohesion and a willingness to speak with a single voice on key foreign policy issues. Section 7. Towards a more self-reliant Europe. The shifting global landscape, coupled with the uncertainties surrounding the transatlantic relationship, has made it abundantly clear that Europe can no longer afford to be strategically dependent on the United States. The time has come for the continent to embrace a more self-reliant and assertive role in world affairs, one that reflects its economic strength, its political values, and its strategic interests. This does not necessarily mean severing ties with the United States or abandoning NATO. The transatlantic alliance, despite its current challenges, remains a cornerstone of European security. However, it does mean rebalancing the relationship, shifting from a model of dependence to one of partnership, where Europe takes on greater responsibility for its own defense and plays a more active role in shaping the global order. Achieving strategic autonomy will require a multifaceted approach. Europe must continue to invest in its own defense capabilities, strengthening its conventional forces, developing cutting-edge military technologies, and bolstering its cyber defenses. It must also deepen its cooperation with like-minded partners around the world, building strategic relationships based on shared values and interests. Furthermore, Europe must leverage its economic might to advance its foreign policy goals. This includes promoting free trade, investing in developing countries, and using its economic leverage to promote human rights and democracy around the world. Section 8. The challenges of collective action. The path towards a more self-reliant and assertive Europe will be fraught with challenges. Overcoming decades of strategic dependence and forging a common foreign policy vision among 27 member states with diverse histories, interests, and threat perceptions is no easy task. One of the main obstacles to collective action in Europe is the enduring legacy of national sovereignty. Many European nations remain reluctant to cede too much power to supranational institutions, fearing that this will undermine their ability to act in their own national interests. This resistance to pooling sovereignty manifests itself in a variety of ways, from disagreements over defense budgets to reluctance to commit troops to joint military operations. Another challenge stems from the uneven distribution of capabilities and resources within the European Union. Larger member states, such as France and Germany, bear a disproportionate share of the burden for European defense, while smaller states often lack the resources or the political will to make significant contributions. This disparity in capabilities can lead to resentment and mistrust, undermining efforts to forge a more equitable and effective defense partnership. Moreover, the rise of populism and nationalism in many European countries has fueled skepticism towards deeper integration and strengthened calls for national solutions to common challenges. Populist leaders often exploit anxieties about immigration, globalization, and the perceived erosion of national identity to undermine support for European institutions and policies. Section 9. A call to action, securing Europe's future. The challenges facing Europe are real, but so too are the opportunities. The changing global landscape, while daunting, also presents Europe with a chance to redefine its role in the world and to shape a new international order based on cooperation, multilateralism, and respect for international law. The time for complacency is over. Europe can no longer afford to be a bystander in world affairs or to rely on others to protect its interests. The future of European security and prosperity lies in the hands of Europeans themselves. To seize this moment, European leaders must embrace a bold and ambitious agenda for strategic autonomy. This requires sustained investment in defense, deeper political and military integration, and a willingness to project power beyond the continent's borders. It also demands a renewed commitment to the values that have underpinned Europe's success: democracy, human rights, the rule of law, and a belief in the power of multilateralism. These values, now under threat both within and outside Europe, must be defended with unwavering conviction. The task ahead is not easy. But the stakes could not be higher. The choices that Europe makes in the years ahead will determine not only its own destiny, but also the shape of the international order in the 21st century. The world is watching, and history will judge Europe by its actions.